And then overarching, one thing that I was interested in was whether we're more uniquely positioned as forest school leaders to not have this verbal bias. Because in a state education system, the majority of the communication is verbal, the majority of the participation is verbal. All of these kind of carrots and sticks are there to promote verbal things. And maybe there's a bit of written communication in between staff and things like that, emails, parents, all that thing. But by and large, verbal communication is the preferred way. If you were to look at forest school leaders, and particularly I'm talking about ones that are like fully off the wonk chart, and you know who you are if you're listening to this, how much do we as forest school leaders talk about non-verbal communication because we get non-verbal communication from nature? We are, in an education system, potentially somewhat uniquely positioned in that one of our key ingredients is a non-verbal participant. The woods, the nature, the environment is non-verbal. So I'm wondering whether we as leaders are more we're more adept at non-verbal communication because and the range of non-verbal communication from the woods can be everything from like feeling the wind change is not verbal communication, but it gives us signals and we move and we do all this, to that's one end of the spectrum. And then I would say there's the other end, which is like I will ask trees if they're okay before I cut branches. I will check in with just how does the woods feel today. Putting your hand up on the elder and asking the witch that lives in the elder before you cut. These are non-verbal. Well, maybe the elder one isn't a good example because I do say that poem out loud. But by and large, I'm not looking for verbal feedback. I'm not looking for a verbal response. I'm looking, and when the wildlife gives us signals that are non-verbal responses, we see where the wildlife is congregating or where they are giving us alarm calls, or whether an alarm call, you could say maybe that's a verbal thing, but maybe it's not a verbal thing. Maybe it's just audible, oral, one of those words. But it's not necessarily verbal. It's not language. Or is it? Is bird alarm calls language? Different podcast. But the point being that I think we are potentially positioned quite uniquely as people who work with a large component of our work is non-verbal, that maybe we are already people with one foot in the door in acknowledging and valuing and representing non-verbal communication to other participants. I have been in situations where I have gone into the school classroom, it's not classroom, staff room, and maybe I've been the one that sits down and goes, the woods is not happy today. I can't quite work out why, but the woods is not happy today. And then to a room of indoor teachers who look at you like you're mad. But that's non-verbal communication. We already know it. We already accept it. We already value it. Well, why aren't we extending this out to our participants? Can we be doing more to extend non-verbal communication out to our participants as a valid form of communication? So many thoughts, so many questions.